am so thrilled today to have Maccabee. Did I say it right or wrong?
Maccabee.
Maccabee. God darn it. Anyway, listeners, y'all know me and names, believe me. Y'all know me. This is probably about the third or the fourth time my sister that messed up. I am so sorry. But he is such a kind, gentle, fun person. He really doesn't mind. So he's like me when people mess my name up, he's like, oh, okay, that's why I go by V, because people mess my name up all the time. But I apologize. And if I mess it up again, say it one more time.
Maccabee.
Maccabee. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. He reminds me, and I want to call him Zach because he looks just like my cousin. So that might slip out too. They look like twins. Anyway, I am so happy to have him here. Number one is because he's a storyteller, but he's a storyteller in a different way. I cannot wait for him to tell you all how. He's not like me. His storytelling is different, which I absolutely love. I love the fact that he also has a podcast, so we have a lot in common. So I asked him to be on the show because I want him to share, especially about the storytelling and the twist and some of the other things that he has going on. So with me saying all of that, messing up your name, please share with my audience tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me on here, Miss V. I appreciate it. My name is Maccabee Griffin. I'm a voiceover actor, a podcast host of Beyond the Pen, and I am a character creator and developer for authors. I was, prior to being all of this, I grew up in the theater when I was younger. I sang in choirs and all this stuff. Very creative. Went to college for it. 9/11 happened. I tried to get into the military. They thought I was crazy, which is kind of interesting at that point. But then again, I also told them I'm an actor. That's come on now. But also, so I had to wait about 5 years. Got into the Army in 2005, served for 9.5 years, did 2 tours in Iraq, got out, went to Indiana University at Bloomington, Indiana for about a year. Couldn't deal with that. There's a variety of reasons. We can get to that a little bit later. And then started working to take care of my family. It's a 9-to-5 job. And during my time at a pharmaceutical company, I started to watch voice actors play Dungeons and Dragons, and everything's went from there. I became a voice actor. Been doing it for a little over 3 years now. And actually, no, it'll be, I started in July. So 3 years. And ever since then, I've been doing that and been having fun doing voiceover. It led me into podcasting and then into character creation. So
that's awesome. Don't you all love it? And we even have more in common because I used to work in the theater. I used to work with the children in the theater, same thing. So we do have a lot in common. So I know you listen to my podcast, and I want to know what story resonated with you.
It was called, if I remember correctly, it was Life During the Pandemic.
Oh, yes. Listen. And that was a story that I posted recently. And I kept thinking about it. And I'm like, I just want to share with everyone, what happened during the pandemic for me, because we all have a story about the pandemic, some good, some bad, but my story. And if you haven't listened to it, I'm going to give you a little background. And if you have, just act like you didn't hear it for the first time. Anyway, so basically, I just share about my journey into becoming a storyteller. That was during the pandemic. I knew that's what I was going to be doing, but I didn't know how. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I was debating about going to a storytelling conference. And I decided to go anywhere. Well, at that time, the world shut down, and I did not know, because we were at the storytelling, and they were doing some safety protocols, but it was nothing like the world had shut down. It was on my way home that I found out. Went to the grocery store, and the shelves were bare. I had to take a picture, y'all, because I couldn't believe it. So anyway, I said, what am I going to do this time? I worked at a school and the kids were sent home. And usually I always had to stay because I was administration. They sent me home. Listen, I was not upset. So I also share how, me having to work at the school during the pandemic, when it shut down, I was like, what am I going to do with my time? So what I did was I took every class. I enrolled in anything that was free to learn how to be a great storyteller. That's what I used the pandemic for. And then I was destroyed when they called us back, not the students, admin meaning me. I had to go back to school. I was not a happy person, but I had favor because they didn't send us back every day. We had to go like 2 times a week and then we would work from home. That was perfect. I set my own business hours because I was going to, make this a business. I set my own hours. I showed up. I'm not full-time, I'm part-time, but I am going to be full-time somewhere near. So basically that's what the story is about. And I give more details and I talk a little bit more about what I did, but I didn't look at the pandemic as a negative. I looked at it as a positive because out of it, I did, my craft increased and I got to meet people around the world, China. I met someone in New Zealand. I met someone in, it was China, Japan, India. I mean, we were all there in one night, all of us, storytellers trying to, make our craft better. It was amazing. So for me, it was a positive. So when you heard the story, what were your thoughts on it?
Well, there was quite a bit of thoughts, actually, to be honest. But my thoughts really were being reminded about how the pandemic did change people's lives for the better in some ways. But we've always just been mostly talking about all the negative, all the death that happened, all the separations that had to be going on. But we also need to look at the other things that happened that were positives. There were a lot more storytellers that came out, a lot of more creative people, because again, they were trying to entertain themselves and tell their stories. Because if there's one thing that we really need to do, especially during this pandemic, was to actually record these stories and to make sure that they are there for future generations. And because of the fact that you were doing it, I mean, it was very impactful, because not only were you doing it for yourself, but you were doing it for others and to inspire others to do the same thing. And I'm sure that there have been many other people that were inspired by you to do that. So I think in the end, that was what really hit me the most out of everything.
Yeah, and I was on this particular podcast, and this gentleman, he told me that's what he decided to do. Was he wanted people to come on his show and to share their stories, and he wanted to make it so like a library, so that you can send your child to it and your child could hear you, tell stories. And he said he has done wonderfully. He said so many people want to come on and they just want to use that as a tool to like share their stories. And you're right, because 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, when people are talking about, the pandemic, they're going to want to hear what went on, what happened, how did you do, what did you do, and all that. And now they will have, what we put out to go back in history and listen, so they would know and they would gain knowledge from it.
Yeah.
So what did you have? Do you have a story that's similar, during the pandemic? What happened with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So during the pandemic, like I said, I was working at a pharmaceutical company, and I was also getting into Dungeons and Dragons a lot, and some coworkers really wanted to have their own game. So I volunteered to be called called the Dungeon Master or Game Master. We are the world builders, the character creators, the storytellers in general. And it's not only just making these things up and creating the world, you're also improving as well. So it really hit that point of scratching that theater itch in me.
Okay.
So I took that and I was just using it as a way to really work on my storytelling skills. I didn't think of it at that time because I was doing voiceover part-time and I wasn't getting a whole lot of things. I think in my first year I put over 1,000 auditions out there and I got 10 and 7 of them for free. But again,
Wow.
I needed something for my portfolio, so I did them anyways. But the more that I did it and the more my friends heard about this stuff, they're like, you need to keep doing this. You keep
Yeah.
doing it, keep
Mm-hmm.
doing it. They fell in love with the world I created for them, fell in love with the characters that I created for them. And the story that we actually all organically built together is something that I will never forget. I loved every single one of those characters I made it, the characters that they made, the silliness, the absolute ridiculousness, and of course those thrilling points were like, oh no, am I going to kill my characters off? Am I going to kill my friends' characters off now? But there are a lot of moments too. But through that time, it really helped me to really understand what I was really processing at that time. And prior to the day that I was laid off from them, was I had a dream, and it was some of these voice actors that I've been watching playing Dungeons and Dragons, and 2 dice came up at the end, and it was a 5 and a 6. And I was like, okay, well, there's something interesting. But the day that they told me that they were letting me go, they also told me we made this decision the day before, and it was May 6th.
Oh, the 5 and the 6 for the
The 5
date.
and 6.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
So that was a hard summer. Thankfully, my wife had just gotten out of radiation therapy school, got her first job and everything. And I still have a pension from the military and stuff, so that helped. But it was still a struggle. But ever since then, I've been doing what I'm doing now.
Wow. So let me understand. So as a voiceover actor with the Dungeons and Dragons, so that my listeners will understand, because I process it very well, but I'm very creative. I'm extremely creative. So in my mind, I saw everything that you were saying. So basically, let me make sure I got it right though. So basically, you create a character for a game. You give them a voice, kind of like when you see animation and you have the stars go in and then they just become the voice, they become the character. So, but you also developed the character and the storyline.
Yeah, absolutely. I created the world, I created the stories, I created the characters. And here's the thing with a lot of dungeon masters, especially those that are just starting out, they're not going to do the voices so much. They're just going to be themselves, but they're going to try to do the best they can to, if it's a woman playing a guy, they're going to try to go into their low voices. If it's a guy playing a girl, we're going to try to take it into our our head voice and stuff like that. But for me as a voice actor, it was more of the joy of taking and switching personalities on them so quickly. And it was so fun. And I still love it to this day. And it makes it fun to me. It really does.
Yeah, because it's kind of like me when I'm writing, because I'm writing all these books. I have all these stories going around my head, and I've already completed one book. I'm just waiting for the proper time to get it published. And I have another story, and I have like 5 other books in my head. But that's like my characters. In my head, my characters have conversation, and some of them have different voices, like the man, a woman, and they'll have a conversation in my head, and my little fingers are just typing, trying to get the conversation down. So it's kind of the same thing. And I, just like what you said, it brings me so much joy when I bring one of my characters to life and I give them their own personality. I give them, that whole person, and they're in my head, they're actual person. And then when I put someone else with it, and especially when I'm writing and I just throw a curveball in, I don't know how I'm gonna write myself out of it, but sometimes I would throw a curveball and bring in like a whole new character, and it psychs me up. It's like if I have to start writing, I'm mad because I'm like, no, I want to get this character, I want to get him in, I want to blend him in, and you get so excited. As you can see right now, I'm getting excited talking about it because I love it. Do you get as excited like I am right now?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I live for it. Here, and the great thing about, and I'm always one to be upfront with everybody and saying, I'm the geekiest geek you could ever see. I'm the dorkiest dork you could ever be. I've been married to the same woman for almost 20 years, and she will tell you right up front, he is a dork and I love it. The fact is, I still have my minis right here in front of me.
Oh Lord, you do.
I literally have all my minis right up here in front of me that I used, and I collect them too. But they're inspiration for me. The fact that I can look at some of these characters and I already have the voices in my head because I've used them before. It's that simple. And the great thing about tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons is the fact that you are living that story out. You are telling it organically with friends and family. And that's the best storytelling that there is out there. It's a social game that's also social storytelling. And here's the other thing I love to tell authors that are just starting out with fiction writing and stuff like that. Go find some friends, okay? Go grab your world, your characters, and put them in a scenario where your friends can put them on an adventure. And I'm telling you right now, you will get so many different thoughts in there, and you will be inspired like crazy to do it. And it will make your world better.
You are so right. And I tell you why, because I before I even knew I was going to be a storyteller, I've always told stories. When I taught school, I used to make up stories. And I remember one day, one of the parents came in and she wanted the book because I had been telling the kids the same story because they wanted it every day. And I had to remember the story every day, because when we sat down for story time, I was like, oh, I want to hear that story. I want to hear that story. I'm like, oh Lord, that's the story I told yesterday. Let me see if I can remember. But the kids would help me. And a parent came in one day and asked me for the book. Where could she buy the book? I said, ma'am, it's up here in my head. It's not a written book. And she was telling me how her child all talked about in the characters and kept doing the gestures. And then one of the things that I used to do, and I used to do with some of my friends when we went to a restaurant, sometimes I still do it. The people in the restaurant are the people in the book, and we make up a story about if we see a couple. I used to do this all the time. One time I went, it was when I was, in school, we went for, it was administration week or whatever, and they appreciated us, so they sent us out to dinner. And the people that I was with were boring. I'm just being honest, they were boring. So me and my crazy self, I'm like, I can't sit here and watch a bunch of dry toast sit at the table. So we're gonna have to make something up. So I said, okay, we're gonna play a game. And I had them, everybody in there had to pick out a couple or somebody at a table and make up a story. Mine was so good, they thought I cheated and I knew the people. That is how good it was. I mean, and they kept watching. If you looked at the couple, you could easily see the story from my, from what I said. And they was like, you're lying, you cheated, you already knew them people. And I was like, go ask them, go ask them. So you're so right, because if you just sit down with a group and you just start sharing, and they will be honest with you, if it's not good, you're going to get crickets, just quietness. But if it's good, you're going to get questions. You can see it all over their faces and all that. But is there anything that's hard about what you do? What is the most difficult thing about what you do?
The hardest thing for me is always trying to I would say the hardest thing, if someone was coming from the outside looking into my brain, which is a very scary thing. There's a lot of people up there. So much so I have to actually have a union rep for each one, depending on if they're chaotic, if they're evil, anyways. I would have to say the hardest thing for me when I do these characters is honestly sometimes stopping. It literally is just stopping, because when I create a character, for me, I have to go 3 generations back.
Oh wow.
I create characters that, because I really understand from a actor's point of view, and the psychology and the emotional aspect of a character. And many a times there are so many factors come in that. For instance, nurture versus nature.
Yeah.
There is the what type of events that have happened in their life. What are the internal feelings from the genetics that we hold? What's the ancestral emotions that we already have, the personalities that are attached to us. And so for me, I love going back 3 generations. The problem for me is I don't know when to stop with the details sometimes.
Yeah.
I created this one character, and like I said, I went 3 characters back, but I had to have a backstory for each and every one of them. I have it packed down where it is, I know the dates that they were born, when they died, when they had their children, many of the personal events in their lives, the celebrations, when the general actually became a general, when he went into the academy, when a changeling came into a city and actually brought on the persona of a lawyer at a young age, and just that mentality of we're going to get revenge for our family, but I'm going to do it the legal way. Well, his sister wants to do it the illegal way. She wants to go after throats. He wants to just put him in jail. So it was always trying to figure out, where do you stop?
You are so right with that. And honestly, because all my characters have a backstory, and I love that is one of the key things for me, is giving them a backstory so they can so you get to know them. You really get to know them and understand them. And in the first book that I finished, I'm like you, I couldn't stop. And honest to God, it could be a spinoff, it could be a series, because that's how much I poured into each character. Yeah. And like you said, it is very difficult to stop. And sometimes you just overthink it. You're just like overboard. And it's like, oh, I got to scale back. Wait. I'm going a little bit too much and revamp. It's the same way when you're writing a book. It sounds like it's the exact same way, and the same kind of techniques that you go through for what you do as a storyteller for voiceovers, except for the only thing is, you don't write it down, do you?
I try to write some of them down, because if not, it gets really, really confusing sometimes. Plus, I don't want to miss out on the really good stuff, and I don't want to forget them. Okay. The other thing that I do when I write these characters, I use what's called the humorous theory. And it's an old psychological basis. It's basically the basis of all psychology. It came from ancient Greece. It was used by Hippocrates, as well as another gentleman. I'm not even going to try to kill his name right now.
Join me, get his name wrong. I do
it. I believe it was Galerius or something to that effect.
But we don't know.
So yeah, we don't know.
We're gonna go with what you just said.
Yeah, just go with it. Just go with the flow. But it was their way of trying to figure out and diagnose people's diseases during that time. Okay. They would look at certain things. They would look at your phlegm, your blood, and your black and yellow bile. Okay. So depending on what you were feeling, if you were feeling depressed, okay, most likely it was part of your black bile. Okay. So it was more intestinal. So we need to fix it that way. Well, since then, we've obviously changed things around. We've used it as a baseline, but we've thrown upon it through the generations. And now we have all these personality quizzes out there, and they're all based solely originally from that, and various other people like Jung and various other psychology godfathers. But when I'm using that, I also use dice. So when I'm asking a question, I roll a dice. So depending on how many answers or situations I can think of, then I will roll a dice that has that many on there. And that's how I figure it out. And when I put all these personalities down, or all these little things about them there, then I have to sit down and actually try to make logical sense of everything there. Okay.
Yeah, yours
And
seems a little bit more complicated. I think I'm gonna
it
stay over
is, but
here.
it's fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay over here. I'm gonna write my book. I'm not gonna cross over to your kind of storytelling because that sounds like a pain. My head hurt from everything you just said. My head hurts because it's like, okay, no, I think I'm gonna just stay over here with my characters and my little head, and we're gonna just stay right here. We're not gonna cross over. You don't have to worry about me trying to be one of you because I'm not going to happen. So
well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When I do it that way, it's never the same. So I could use the same character, the same personality and everything, got all their traits, 4 strengths, 4 weaknesses. And then if I just change one personality trait, that changes the entire personality. It changes the entire narrative.
I can see that.
So technically, when I say that I have multiple characters, I'm not lying. I have 6 major characters already written out. Okay. Actually, technically, I have 15. I have 15 characters because I have a family as well. But if I change one personality trait on any of them, I can have variants that go up to about 114, 135 different characters just off of that.
That's a lot of people in your head. God bless your wife, because that's a lot of people running around inside your head.
Oh,
it's a lot of people.
Well, yeah, that's why I said I need union reps to when they talk to me and stuff, or they try to take control. But it makes it fun. It makes it's just my way. It's my way of doing things.
Yeah,
but it works.
It sounds like it's a lot of fun, but I don't want us to run out of time. So what I want to do is answer our questions, the questions at the end of the story. So, you know, when I share my stories with you guys, I always give you my thoughts and then I ask you questions. And I actually love this part because I love to hear different people's answers. So the first question is, what did you do during the pandemic? And of course, you all know I did. I worked on Miss Storytelling. But what did you do besides that? Did you do anything differently?
I tried to survive. That's what I tried to do.
Okay, a lot of people did that.
Yeah, a lot of people did that. It was a transition for me, and it was more of me taking a chance on the road that God put me on.
Amen. Yeah. That's the same thing because God told me you're going to be a storyteller. That's exactly what I want you to do. And so I took that time to find out exactly what it is. Now my storytelling is different because all my stories are personal stories, and those are used as tools to help people, you know, that's going through, like I lost my voice, and that is one of my major things, is to help people find their voices and to find their stories to help them. So it was God ordained, and he slowed down enough time so that I could take the time to learn my craft, and kind of like you did. The other question is, did you learn a new skill or did you learn something about yourself during the pandemic?
For me, it was definitely dusting off all those acting skills and the improv skills that I had in school, but I hadn't used them for 20 years. But the other thing was that I finally realized is that even though I was building these worlds and building these characters and everything about them, I never thought myself as a writer. I always thought myself as just a creative person. But when I started to put them on paper and sharing them with people, they always looked at me as like, no, you're a writer, and if you say that you're not, I'm going to slap you. So it a virtual slap, but it was like I finally realized that I am a writer. I just do it in a different way. That's why that's why when I create these characters in these backstories, it's actually just an entire book series. I told you I don't know when to stop. But that was what happened. That's literally the greatest thing that happened to me.
You know, for me, one of the things that I guess what I learned about myself is that I really do enjoy meeting people around the world, because I went to a couple of storytelling conferences that were virtual, and thank God that they came out with Zoom and all these different platforms, because I would have never met these people. And I was able to meet people from India and all that, and we were all together and we were all sharing and we were learning from each other. And I really did enjoy that. And I know for a fact that would have never happened, you know. And the thing about it was, I realized that one thing we all had in common were two things. Number one, we were all in the pandemic together, no matter where I was in the world. Everybody was going through the exact same thing. And the second thing I learned was everybody that was a part of that storytelling, they were storytellers in their own rights from their own. And I learned a lot, because most of the people are the traditional storytellers that I was involved with, and mine was different. But I realized that although mine is all personal stories, the point of it is it's still a story regardless.
Yeah.
And so I really learned that about myself, that I really do. And I'm an introvert. Most people don't believe me, like, no, you're not. I'm like, yes, I am. I am. And when I have to be out, I will be out. But, for the most part, I'm an introvert. But I really enjoyed being with them, enjoyed that. So, yeah, I learned a lot of skills. Now, I do want you to talk a little bit, because I know about Beyond the Pen fan page. I want you to talk about that a little bit and tell us just a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my podcast, Beyond the Pen, is a podcast where we take unknown and newly published authors and we give them a platform to tell us about their books, themselves, and most importantly, the story behind the story, because we want to really start to create that personal bridge between reader and writer. So for instance, like right now, our second season is coming up on Tuesday. It'll be on your favorite platform, whatever it may be, Apple, Spotify, any of those. And we have a gentleman by the name of Chris Laparco, and he wrote a series of books called The Story Told. It's a Christian fantasy fiction book. And he used a lot of things. If you think like Dante's Inferno and Meet Joe Black and those, and try to mix them up with a variety of other things, it's an amazing story. And we talk about him, about all the symbolism that he used within it, the faith-based symbolisms. We talk about some of the trauma that he's went through and how he put it into his book. We talk about a variety of different things, and it's an amazing story, and everybody needs to go out and buy it.
Well, good. I'm so glad. So give us where we can find you if we are interested in Beyond the Pen, if we are interested in the voiceovers. Tell us your social media, platforms and where we can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest places that you can go find us is beyondthepenpodcast.com, as well as my personal one, which is Mac Griffin, V as in Victor, O as in Oscar.com. As well as on Instagram which one was it? Twitter and
Facebook.
Twitter and TikTok. No, Twitter and TikTok. You can find me under @MacGriff909. Instagram, you can find me under Beyond the Pen Podcast. And then of course, Facebook and LinkedIn, you can find me under Maccabee Griffin.
Okay. I'll make sure, I have, as always, I put it in the description so you'll be able to find him. And I want to thank you so much for being here. Honestly, you have just made my brain go crazy. And I love it because, when people think about storytellers, they always think about somebody reading a book or standing up and tell an old story, like an old fable and all that. But they never see that storytellers are all different. There are so many different types of storytellers. So that's why I wanted you up here. And I'm so glad you did. So you all can see that there's such a great variety of storytellers. And thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me. We really appreciate it. Of course we do. It's so fun.
You see all those people running around. He said, y'all pray for him.
Pray for me. Pray for me. Yeah. I don't know why. They just,
I'll
take over.
All right. Bye.
Bye.